So I'm going to show you how to do a quick roasted pumpkin today with some rosemary and lemon and a little bit, I like to finish it with a little goat cheese and some twisted pumpkin seeds. It's a delicious side dish. You could also put it in a salad, and you'll be really surprised about how delicious it is. I know the first time I tried it, I was actually really surprised about how good it was. I ate the entire thing. Not the whole pumpkin, maybe half. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do it today. I have here sugar pie pumpkins, which I think are the best for cooking. They're a variety. They're a little bit sweeter. They have a nice firm flesh, and they're kind of small. You don't want a giant pumpkin. And if you carve something into a jack-o'-lantern and leave it on the front porch, please don't cook it later because it's been hanging out outside. There's been bacterial growth. You could make yourself sick. So the ones you've carved into jack-o'-lanterns, put them in the compost. They go away really quick in the compost. The worms love it. So I'm going to do half a pumpkin today. So I have half, I baked half last night. And you want to be careful when you're cutting pumpkins because they are a hard squash. You can hear when I knock on it. And so you need a fairly heavy chef's knife to cut into it. And you want to just cut it in half first. Usually I kind of try and slice around it and then break it with my hands at the very end if I can't make it all the way through. And then you just want to scrape out the seeds. This part is a little bit of a pain, but really the rest of the actual roasting process makes it totally worth the effort right now because that part is really simple. And so scraping the seeds with my spoon, scraping through all of that stringy inside. You don't really want that. And this takes a minute. And go ahead and save the seeds because they're great for roasting, and this is a great way too if you want to top it with the goat cheese and the pumpkin seeds like I suggested. You're just going to want to rinse off all of this stringy goo and then roast it. Okay, all my seeds are scraped out of my pumpkin and all my little strings, so I'm going to start cutting it up into about 1/2-inch slices, and then I'm going to peel those slices because it's a little easier to peel per slice than peel this entire thing as a whole. While I'm doing lemon and rosemary today, you could also sprinkle the pieces with a little bit of cinnamon and maybe a little bit of grated orange zest and roast them that way too. Maybe put the orange zest on at the end, which is what we're doing with the lemon zest today. Let me get my stem end off. So I'm just slicing through, and pumpkins have all sorts of vitamins. They're high in beta carotene. They're healthy for you. And they have a nice structure. They don't get too mushy when you cook it. You can, cook it down to a mushiness. You can make a great soup with leftover roasted pumpkin. So if you want to roast this up and then you don't want to eat all of it in one night, you can go ahead and puree it up with a little bit of stock and make a really good soup the next day. Okay, so now I'm going to peel each piece. And if you can use a vegetable peeler if you'd like, or a paring knife. I'm using a paring knife. But do be careful when you use a paring knife because it is a fairly firm squash. And it is pretty easy to cut yourself if you're not careful, if you're not confident in your paring knife skills. I occasionally use sort of a back and forth motion if I feel like I'm coming up against a lot of resistance. It makes it a little bit safer. And sometimes I flip it over and start from this end again and meet in the middle. You want to try and not get too much of the flesh off with the peel, but sometimes it happens. It's a little better to waste a tiny bit of pumpkin rather than, cut your hand really badly. And then I'm just going to hack this into little chunks. You want to make them as even as possible. Okay, I've got my pumpkin all cut up into 1/2-inch chunks. And now I'm just going to drizzle it with a couple tablespoons of olive oil. I'm just going to eyeball it. However much you want to use, you can use 1 tablespoon. I like a little bit more oil. I like that caramelization, and I like that fat. I'm going to put in a tablespoon of chopped fresh rosemary. I happen to have some in my backyard. If you don't have access to chopped fresh rosemary, you can use another herb. I think the rosemary tastes really good with the pumpkin. There's something about that piney, sort of lemony taste of the rosemary that goes just really well with the squash. Gives it a nice savory edge without overpowering it. You could use another herb like oregano. You might want to add that in at the end instead of roasting it because rosemary is really hearty and so it kind of holds up well. And sprinkle it fairly liberally with some kosher salt, probably a teaspoon to a teaspoon and a half. And grind on a generous amount of black pepper. And then give it a toss. You can use a spoon. I'm going to use my hands. They're clean. I just cut up the pumpkin. So I think hands are really good tools in the kitchen. When it's all evenly coated, I'm just going to dump it straight onto a rimmed baking sheet. And spread it out nicely so you can get lots of contact with the baking sheet. You can give the pieces of pumpkin a little bit of space so they can roast nicely. You're just going to put the pumpkin into a 425-degree oven for about 20 minutes. And after 20 minutes, you're going to take a spoon, turn the pieces over, and continue roasting it for about another 10 to 15 minutes until the pieces are tender and they're nice and brown. And then I'll show you how to finish it off. I'm just going to put it into the serving dish and grate a little bit of lemon zest over the top. The lemon will just add a little bit of freshness. The oils and the lemon zest, I think, add sort of a depth that just the juice won't. We're going to add some juice too, but start off using my rasp grater. Just going to grate a little bit of zest right over it. And then cut my lemon in half and squeeze just a little bit of the juice over it. I'm squeezing it through my fingers so any seeds that come out don't go directly into my pumpkin. I like to serve them with a little bit of toasted pumpkin seeds that have been shelled and then toasted. And then I sprinkle a little bit of chopped Italian parsley on the top for color. And then if you want to get really decadent, I like to put a little bit of crumbled up chev, which is goat cheese, on the top. And that tangy creaminess of the cheese with the sweetness of the squash, the little hit of lemon, the crunchiness of the toasted pumpkin seeds, and that freshness of the parsley. It's really good. I highly recommend it. It's a great way to do pumpkin. And you could do a sweet version of this as well by adding a little bit of cinnamon to the squash and then grating some orange zest and a little bit of orange juice over the top for sort of just mildly sweet flavor. Or you can just do it simply with the lemon and rosemary. Either way, pumpkin's really versatile and it's a really fun thing to cook, so give it a shot.